In this lesson, we're going to go through the navigation actions. There's not too many of them, and they're pretty straightforward, so we should be able to get through these pretty quickly. The first one is the go to page action. This is how you can move your users from one page to another within your own app. So if the user is currently on the dashboard page, like we are here, and they click a button, and let's say this button is labeled as go to home page. Then when you start and edit a workflow, and I've already got this begun here, I can add the go to page action and select my destination as the index page or some other page in my app. But this is pretty straightforward. It just takes the users from one page to another. Now, depending on whether you have that page set up as a dynamic page, then this data to send field will be required to pass data to the page. We will cover this in a completely separate lesson that's dedicated to passing data around, but I just wanted to point it out. There is an extra field here. Right now, I do not have to fill anything in because my index page is not set up to be a dynamic page. So this is not required. In fact, if I had something in here, it would throw an error because that index page isn't set up to receive data. And then the other option you have is to send parameters to the page you are going to. Parameters are a way to add on extra text to your URL for the purpose of extracting them back on the other page, on that page that you are on. It's another way to pass data around, and I will also cover this in that same lesson that talks about passing data between pages. So I won't enable this here. We'll actually go into that in more detail, but I just wanted to point out that there are options here to send data within this action, but mainly this is to move your users around within your own application. And you can see that there is a shortcut to create a new page directly from this window. It's the exact same as going to your page drop-down list and clicking add a new page from here. Okay, so the next action is refreshing the page. Very straightforward. If you ever need something in your application to trigger a complete refresh to start the page from its default state, then this is the action you'll want to run. All right, and then the next action is going to the previous page, and this is referring to the previous page from their browser. So let's say that they came to your application from a Google search, and the first page that they land on in your app has a button to go to the previous page that triggers this action. This will take them back to that Google result. It takes them back to whatever the previous page was in their browser history. It doesn't matter whether it was in your app or not. It's exactly like clicking the back button in your browser window. Okay, let's see. The next action is to open an external website. So this is a way to launch any navigation to any URL, whether it's in your app or not. So I could type in google.com or Facebook or whatever it might be. Any external site can be added in here. And you can see that your destination can be a static value, just like I've typed in, or it can be something that's dynamic. So an example of opening a dynamic website would be in our job board application. Let's say the companies that have been created as a part of filling out their company profile. Let's go to the data tab here and see this. So when a company is created, they will, enter what their name is. They'll upload their logo. They'll insert their location. But let's say we allow them to enter in the company website. Okay, so they can save that as a text. And when an applicant is looking at a profile of a company, maybe we've created a page in our application for company profile, then they can click the button and go to that company's website. So that would be dynamic because we don't know which company the user happens to be looking at. But this is where we can insert the current company's website as a dynamic value. As an example here, I'm just going to do a search for any company. So I'll search for company, and I'm just going to choose the first item in that search result, and I'll select website. Okay, so as long as part of creating the company, I've allowed that company user to save the website to some field, like the one that I just created here. Then running this action will take the user to this field's value. So you'll want to make sure that the value that's saved here is a full URL, because that's what this action is looking for. Okay, so whether it's static or dynamic, you can have the user open an external website. One thing to note about this action is that the navigation will happen in the same page. It will not open a separate tab to open this external site. If you want to open a separate tab, then you'll want to use the link element instead. You will not want to open that site through a workflow. The link element, I'll add it to the page here, will let you choose an external URL as the link destination. You can see you can switch between external or internal. The internal will let you choose a page in your app, but external will let you insert any dynamic or static URL. And you have the option here to open it in a new tab. This is not available, this feature, in the workflows. Okay, the next action is adding a pause before the next action. This lets you control the timing of your actions in a particular workflow. The main thing to know about this is that it will only work for actions that are happening on your page. It will not function for any actions that are making changes to your database. Bubble will just ignore it in that case. So a good example of using a pause here is, let's say we click the button. I'm just going to rename this back as submit. And let's say I have an icon on my page here. And let's say this is like a loading icon. Let's do, I think it's spinner. And I'm going to have this rotating, so a little spinning icon. Okay, and I want to show this icon after I've clicked the button and then hide it after a certain number of seconds. So let's hide the icon by default by unchecking this box here. So now I can see it because I'm still designing it, but I can toggle it off so I can see what it looks like when it's not there. Now the submit button, the first thing that will happen, I'm just going to right click here and insert an action. First thing I want to do is show the icon. So I'm going to jump over to Element Actions, Show, and then select my icon. So that's the first thing. And then I'm going to add a pause. And the pause length is set in milliseconds. And let's pause for 2.5 seconds. So I'll do 2,500 milliseconds. And then I'm going to hide the spinning icon. So I'll go to Element Actions, Hide, and select the icon again. Okay, so this particular action is happening on the page. It's not touching the database in any way. It's just working with the element. So I'm going to refresh, or I'm going to preview the page, and we'll see this in action. So I'll click Submit. There we see it. We can see Bubble thinking for a moment, and now it's gone. Right? Now, if I didn't have this pause, I probably would never even see the icon to begin with because I'm showing and immediately hiding it. So let's check that out. I'm going to refresh the page and I'll click the button. All right, so see how nothing actually happens because Bubble's actually running those one right after the other, show, hide. I don't even get a chance to see it. It doesn't even flash. So having that pause is very useful if you want to space things out happening on the page a little bit more. Just remember that it will not pause if the action you are pausing before is making changes to your database. For example, I can't click submit and wait 5 seconds before I create a record in my database. It will just ignore it. So you can see a little message here for that. Hiding the status bar, you saw that loading bar come across the screen. You can check that box if you want that to be hidden and you don't want the user to actually know or be aware that some kind of loading period is happening. Okay, and then I believe there's one more action here in our navigation list, and that is to terminate the workflow. So this will stop the workflow wherever this action is and prevent any actions after this from running. This is useful, especially if you have a condition on here, so that only under some condition, the rest of the workflow does not run. This is really just going to depend on what you're doing and the different scenarios that might happen that might want to, you might want different paths to run, with your series of actions here. So as an example, let's say I show that icon first when I click the button, and then I will hide it after this action here. And let's say that I do not want the icon to be hidden if the user is logged in. This is a very simple example, but just to kind of show you, if the user's logged out, then we will show, and then we will hide. And of course, with this particular example, we probably would also want to have that pause in here so that we can actually see the icon. So I'll just do 2 seconds here. But if the user is logged in, then it stops here. And I will remain with the icon on the page. It will not pause for anything, and it will not hide the icon. So again, it just depends on what you're doing. This is just a way to completely cut off the rest of the workflow from the point of this action forward. Okay, so I'm going to refresh the page. I am logged in currently, so it should not run this pause or hide the icon at all. So I'm going to click submit, and we're just going to be stuck on this action here. It'll just remain on the page. Okay, so those are your navigation actions. There aren't any other ones that get added with extra plugins or anything like that. This is the full list for this category of actions.